It was a single phone call, quiet, unexpected, and devastating. After nearly 50 years of bringing Charlie Brown, Snoopy, and the Peanuts gang to life, one late-night conversation changed everything. The man behind one of the world's most beloved comic strips, Charles Schulz, simply said two heartbreaking words, "I'm done." What could drive a man who created so much joy and laughter to suddenly walk away from it all? The truth behind that moment reveals a story filled with exhaustion, heartbreak, and an ending as bittersweet as the world he drew. For nearly half a century, Charles M. Schulz was more than just a cartoonist. He was the voice of an entire generation. Through Peanuts, he created characters who reflected our deepest fears, insecurities, and hopes. From Charlie Brown's endless optimism to Snoopy's boundless imagination, Schulz's art made people feel seen. His comic strip appeared in over 2,600 newspapers and reached 355 million readers every day. Yet behind the lighthearted humor and gentle wisdom, Schulz carried an emotional burden few ever saw. He wasn't just drawing his characters, he was living them by the late 1990s. Charles Schulz was in his late 70s, still producing every Peanuts comic by hand. Unlike many artists who handed off their work to assistants, Schulz refused to let anyone else touch his strip. He poured his soul into every line, every word balloon, every simple, poignant punchline. But as the years went on, the weight of his perfectionism began to take its toll. Schulz was growing tired. Decades of relentless deadlines left him physically and emotionally drained. His hand, once so steady, began to tremble. And then came the news that shattered everything: a diagnosis of colon cancer in late teens. If you're using like a scanner app and it's like you're gonna die. Like, look at this. Look at this. And we all know I've been exploring. Which L, they will know. 1999. That's when the phone call came. According to those close to him, Schulz received a call from his doctor confirming the seriousness of his illness. The prognosis was grim for a man who had spent his life drawing, writing, and creating joy. The thought of not being able to continue was devastating. After hanging up the phone, Schulz quietly told his wife, "I'm done." It wasn't just the end of a comic strip. It was the end of a lifelong relationship with his characters, his fans, and the art that defined him. He announced his retirement soon after, explaining that his illness made it impossible to continue his daily work. In his farewell letter, published in newspapers across the world, Schulz wrote with heartbreaking honesty, "Charlie Brown, Snoopy, Linus, Lucy. How can I ever forget them?" He thanked his fans for their decades of loyalty, adding that he had always wanted Peanuts to end with him. No ghostwriters, no successors, no reboots. It was a deeply personal decision that reflected his integrity and love for his creation. He wanted Peanuts to live and die with him. As purely as it began, just months later, on February 12, 2000, Charles Schulz passed away peacefully in his sleep the night before his final Sunday strip was published. In an almost poetic twist, that last comic featured Snoopy sitting at his typewriter, thanking readers for the years of happiness they had shared. There were no tears, no grand finale, just a quiet goodbye from a man who had spent his life giving the world simple truths through A Boy and His Beagle. The news of his death broke hearts around the globe. Fans mourned as if they had lost an old friend. Generations had grown up with Peanuts, finding comfort in its humor and humanity. Schulz's passing marked not only the end of an era, but also the end of a kind of innocence in popular culture. Even today, more than 2 decades later, Peanuts continues to inspire new readers, proving that Schulz's message of hope and perseverance will never fade. Charles Schulz's story is not just one of success, but of devotion. A man who gave everything to his art until he physically couldn't anymore. That fateful phone call wasn't just a sign of illness. It was the moment he accepted that his time with Peanuts had come to a close. Yet in leaving, he gave us something eternal, a legacy that continues to remind us that even in sadness, there is beauty, and even in endings, there can be peace. In the end, Schulz didn't just say, "*, I'm done."